research we do in the industrial relations section is in a variety of areas centered around labor in the economy. Over the years, people have studied topics such as training programs, labor unions, labor management and relations, labor supply, the minimum wage, income distribution. The approach we use is really heavily empirical. So we're interested in the facts, but we try to understand the facts in the context of serious economic models. We look at large quantities of data in a variety of areas and always try to understand them in the context of our understanding of the economic world.
This section is unlike any other place to learn economics. Everything is about looking at data, trying to understand, how to tease out cause and effect, where there's just a lot of ideas flowing all the time.
So at the start of the industrial relations programs that were occurring in the United States in the early 1920s, we have J.D. Rockefeller, who was very interested in having academic programs that represented research about the relationship between labor and capitalists. So he sought the expertise of C.J. Hicks, Clarence John Hicks, who was well known as a labor policy expert. And Rockefeller provided the gift, and Hicks sought where those programs should exist. And when he visited Princeton University, he saw the uniqueness of the university library, and that is how it began as the industrial relations section here at Princeton University.
The section was really good at kind of helping me in my third and fourth year do kind of that early project filtering. Because it's so hard, because there can be all these things that you're interested in, but there's no guarantee that your hypotheses will be true or that there'll be the data there. We kind of had this thing that we ran with Leah where we would meet on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, and we'd pitch early stage ideas, and they kind of help us say like, yes, no, maybe, and here's the direction you should go into. But there's also all kinds of informal settings with other graduate students that also allow for that.
I think a hallmark of the research coming out of the IR section is a focus on context and institutional detail. So that might involve going out to a firm, going out on the job to observe what's going on when you're going to collect data from a particular firm. Or if you're working on a policy change, to really get to know the policy history backwards and forwards before getting involved in a research project.
Well, the industrial relations section really came to signify or symbolize almost an attempt to use empirical analyses to try and tell a convincing story about the aspect of some economic characteristic of the labor market. So it had a much bigger influence, not just in the labor field, but in many other fields. All about this business of trying to use empirical material to find a really credible way to say something meaningful about a public policy problem.
I think the faculty really value the students here in the section, and I think more than anything you can see this in that when they talk to you, you really feel like a colleague more than a student. I haven't really felt like a student in a while. They kind of talk about your ideas and treat you as they do one another, and kind of all being around here in the section, kind of physically close together is really nice, and you're going to run into each other and you're going to overhear conversations, and sometimes people will be talking about something and it'll catch your interest and you're going to also stop and stay and listen because it's something that you're actually also interested in.
I went into economics because I was interested in the role of economics in helping to understand the world and to make better public policy. And I came to this section because I had like-minded colleagues there. What I would say is I brought to Washington an understanding of empirical methods, an understanding of what we can learn and cannot learn from any one study, and understanding that it really takes a collection, a body of evidence about what the impact of a policy might be.
I broadly work in econometrics, so this helps to develop statistical methods and procedures for economists to use, and I also study the properties of these procedures so that people can draw the correct conclusions from their study. In particular, I work with instrumental variables and weak instruments. So this is what happens when the correlation between some form of randomness that's naturally occurring and the cause of interest is weak.
When we talk about the most important contributions to come out of the IR section, I think one common theme is raising the standards of evidence. And you see evidence in Bob Lalanne's famous study on evaluating econometric methods using experiments. You see it in David Card's work on immigration. You see it in Josh Angrist's work on the effect of military service on lifetime earnings. You see it in Alan Kruger and Orley's work on the returns to education as evidenced through data on twins.
I met with the faculty, I met with the staff, and I just got the sense that this is like a family. And I think that's relevant because we are always encouraging and inviting visitors, visiting graduate students, visiting faculty, postdocs. There is this spirit of bring people into the world of the section, and then we follow them afterwards. We keep those connections.